Rakal Halayim La, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakal Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and to the Arkim out here that's pushing this word. This is the brother Yakalim, and out of one Ratazal through the Spirit, this video is edifying. I want to speak on how their inward thought is that their kingdom shall last forever. And that's going into the so-called white man. And I know, brothers out there and listeners out there, if you live in certain parts of the country, they're just building up, especially here in Massachusetts. There's so many projects going on, and I don't mean a condo renovation. I mean whole condo complexes being put up, whole buildings with offices and storefronts are being put up. And in this photo, I took this photo. This is considered the South End where we live, and you can see this blue building right here with the crane on it. That's one building. The one behind it is a second building, and the one behind that is a third building. And the one to the far left, this one right here, they just recently built that. But it just goes to show, they're sitting there building, and it's all for naught, because it's all going to be missile food that's going to be consumed by the ICBM missiles, when the Lord releases his judgment via those. And this is around the corner. This is another building that they made, and as you can see, this is the foundation. Nothing but Edomites. Nothing but Edomites. They don't even let Jake control the machines. But this is going to be a skyscraper. And they build them like that because it reminds them of when it was in the Caucasus Mountains. And getting right into my precept, Psalms 49 and 11. The inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. And this right here is a perfect example, especially at the part where they say dwelling places to all generations, because these places right here, they're expensive. The rent is $4,000 to $5,000 plus, and even on the top, even more. It costs a lot of money to live down here. I mean, especially with gentrification. If you do your research, Boston's up there. I read an article the other day. It says Boston was number 3 in gentrification, and especially those brothers from here. You already know, once they put that Whole Food in that area, it's all white. But once again, that's the Lord. It just goes to show the beauty of the Lord, because he's moving these Edomites closer to get ready for that race war during Jacob's trouble. So, it's just like Proverbs 20 and 24 says, man's coming and going is of the Lord. So the Lord is making these moves, but behind the scenes, setting it up. And at the last part, they call their lands after their own names. That's a perfect example, especially us being here in captivity over here in America. That's named after Amerigo Vespucci, or Africa, and that's a perfect example on why our people are in a gross darkness. Not to sway from the subject, just to bring that out, is because they go around calling themselves African Americans after 2 Edomites. The same with Asians, and the same with a lot of these other nations. They're but it also goes to show who the devil that the Bible speaks of, because who else is able to build up? Who else is able to have the finances for that? Especially when their face is on the money. Who has the power to go into a land and have that land named after them? Nobody else but the so-called white man. And especially here in Massachusetts, going into Habakkuk 2 and 12, woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establisheth a city by iniquity. And that's a perfect example of what happened to Gad. Gad was over here, and I don't see much Gadites. You don't see no tribes. You don't see no reservations over here. They've all been pushed out. Their blood was shed just so these Edomites could build up. And just to bring out a brief history of Massachusetts, because when people see Massachusetts, they think about, we got the best sports teams. It's not racist over there. It seems cool, but when you live here, you understand that that's far from the truth. Boston's a very racist place. It's just the spirit of these Edomites. They hate Jake, but here in Massachusetts, they just know how to consume it better. basically can consume it better, hide it, you know? In a little brief history, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, in the Massachusetts Bay Colony that preceded it, was named after the area's indigenous people, the Massachusetts. The tribe's name translates to near the Great Hill, referring to the Blue Hills southwest of Boston. And that just goes to show that this place, they kept the name of the tribe that was slaughtered and pushed out. And that's all type of files. And you know, where we teach down at where we teach in Boston, you know, it's expensive to live down there. Very expensive. You don't even see Jake down there like that unless they got paper. But that area where we teach, that used to be an area dominant with Jake, you know. And there's a book out there called The Politics of Black Education by Tony Hill, and it says the history of Boston is a case in point. Boston is the city where public education began and the city with the first Jim Crow school system. Boston is the city where public schools were first integrated, and where 100 years later the struggle for integration had to be fought all over again. By the 1974, no one who saw the white mob stoning buses carrying defenseless black children should have been surprised, and that's especially down there in South Boston, where them Irish people live, and a lot of them could be Jake, and that's why they benefited when the so-called white men started calling themselves white, because when these Irish people came over here as immigrants, they was treated like Jake, especially by the Italians, and you have Italians who are Jake as well. So that's why when they started calling themselves so-called white and so-called black, the so-called Irishmen and the so-called Italian men were able to integrate based on their skin color. Well, we look white, so we finally get a break. Especially with that movie, I believe it's called King of New York or Gangs of New York, where it showed how the Irish, it had Leonardo DiCaprio in it, how the Irish and the Italian used to fight. You know, and it just goes to show, it says right here, Boston has a long history, perhaps the longest in the nation, of bitter conflict over race and education, but yet that's all swept under all for sports. So when you see these buildings being built up and all these condos and stuff, they're pushing Jake out, but yet they think this is a place for Jake because of the sports. That's the only time a so-called white person love a nigga, is when they playing sports, basically when they making the money. Slavery. We are in captivity. There's no break, you know? And I'm going to bring out Deuteronomy 5:21, where it says, neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's. And the white man went totally against that, the so-called white man. He was contrary to that scripture right there. He coveted everything. Brothers did a beautiful show last week. How the hell did Esau covet the hood? The hood was an experiment. They put us there. They put us in these projects to see how we would survive. But us being the seed of Yasharallah, we survived. The Lord put that spirit on us to be strong people. We survived, and they came back and built it up. They moved out to the suburbs. I used to work for a Khazard, and he told me the Khazard, they used to be in Roxbury. You could see the Star of David on certain temples in Grove Hall. Places in Boston that are predominantly, if you grew up in the 90s, you would think that was always a predominantly Jake area. But it used to be where the Khazards dwelt, and then they moved out to like Stoughton, Sharon, and Jake was left. There's a lot of beautiful homes in areas that, $1 million homes in areas that, are very high in crime. But then their children want to be down with Jake so bad that they came back and started buying up stuff. Why? Because they got that money. Why? Because generational wealth. And the last script I want to bring out, because I didn't mean to have this video go on. I just wanted to, just to show me, because driving around the city, you see all these places being built, and it's like, man, we just want to get out of this place. That's why we say out of Waratazah, that we're part of that first fruit. But even if we're not, man, this place is going to be a thing of the past. And I want to end it with Obadiah 1 and 10, because a so-called white man, he has to pay for what he did. Not just by pushing Jake out, or he has to pay for what he did to Gad. He has to pay for what he did to all the tribes. And Obadiah 1 and 10 says, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. And that's beautiful. That gives us hope, because the Lord is a man of his word, because where we teach, you have all the nations, because there's downtown, there's Sharpen, but you have these Edomites. When we bring this out, because we teach right next to a place where they do the little tours where the so-called white man tells all his lies about how his forefathers came over here and civilized the natives and freed the slaves, all that bullshit. That when we bring out what they did to Gad, they always got that smug look on their face, like how could you say such things? Well, no, that's what you did. You pushed a whole tribe of people out. And they didn't just push because Gad was fighting. Gad wasn't no pushover, but that was the Lord's will that it went like that. So, out of Waratazah, I hope this video was edifying, because we're almost out of here. These damn devils really think that, their kingdom's going to last forever, and it's not. The kingdom that was promised to last forever was Yasharalah's. Shalom.